Hi. So this is a quick video. Like, I got some comments on the last video series that I made where people were like, whoa, 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 you don't tell people that you're a trans person when you date them, and no, the fuck I don't. I fucking don't. There are a myriad of reasons why I don't disclose that I'm a bigender person when I'm going on fucking dates on OkCupid. But I mean, obviously I don't need to explain myself, but I will because I care. Mainly, first, like, I want to say the people that are like calling me out, or rather like making comments, I want you to know that, like, you guys are part of the problem in terms of like just like transphobic ass rhetoric around like why people who are trans may or may not disclose their identities to people. And you know, I want to just say that, like, when you say things like, oh, you know, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable, unsafe position by not disclosing your transness, what you're basically saying to me is, oh man, you're going out to meet dudes when you have a dick. Like, that's literally what I'm reading. And it irks me because people are so pressed on figuring out what I was assigned at birth, you know, like, because that's what people want to know. People want to know, once they find out you're trans, they want to know what you were assigned at birth in terms of your gender, which is assigned to you from knowing your sex, which obviously is problematic because there's intersex people out there who constantly are being misgendered, constantly are forced into gender representations that don't really fucking fit what their personal gender perception or gender presentation is, or performance is. While obviously it's not important for me to disclose the genitalia that I have, I will say that I was assigned female at birth. Basically meaning that when they looked between my legs, they decided that I was a female-bodied person. Obviously, you know, being a bigender person, as I've said in other videos, it's very strange for me sometimes trying to seek community, because a lot of trans folks, they are, and this is not all, but they're more concerned with passing in terms of, you know, their transition, and that this is just like the people that I've been around. It's very rare that I've been around like genderqueer folks who were also bigender, or who were just like in flux and just like presenting on the kaleidoscope of gender. And because of that, you know, it's really hard for me to like really like articulate myself well, because I haven't had a lot of like experience talking about my transness openly, but I try to when I can, but because it is so normalized that like I exist as a cis, you know, seemingly cis person, like, because I present myself as a cis high femme woman, like predominantly, most of the time, predominantly, like that's my gender presentation. However, that is not always true in terms of like, you know, how it is that I am feeling, how it is that like my gender is like relating to my present self. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with like, you know, being a poor person, like being poor. You know, growing up, I wasn't able to experiment at all with like being a high femme person. So like part of my excitement with makeup, my want to have makeup, to employ the use of it, or to buy hair, or to look a certain way, comes from the fact that like in my girlhood, I was extremely uncaring of participating in beauty culture as a whole. So, you know, I still do have excitement around beauty culture and makeup and hair and all those things, but now I'm able to more so understand myself as I've been able to, you know, identify and understand, you know, what gender is and what performance is, gender performance, and just trying to, you know, get to the root of who I am, which I'm still figuring out. You know, I'm 24 years old, and I've been just, you know, I've been on so many journeys of self, like, to where, you know, I'm able to recognize that there are times where I don't think I knew who I was at all, and I feel like a crumb closer, which is like a big deal to me. But getting back on track, me being able to use my cis privilege, you know, me being able to use the privilege of appearing as the gender and sex that I was assigned to at birth. Like, you know, the performance of being cis, of being a woman, so says society, you know, like that is a whole thing. And I find myself a lot of times on dating sites wanting to create two profiles, one for when I'm feeling, you know, I suppose like more cis or more so the gender that I was assigned to at birth. And then there is the part of me that doesn't feel like, you know, I'll ever be able to completely be who I am. And I want to create another profile where like I feel like there is safety possible, even though I know from just the way that people were coming at me for not disclosing my bigenderness that that is not the case. Because, you know, as I said, until people can stop correlating transness with genitalia or gender with sex, we can't really, you know, get into a conversation about why somebody would like not want to disclose their transness. Not to mention the fact that like when I'm going on these dates on OkCupid, more often than not, you know, if I do get to a point in the conversation where I'm down to meet somebody, I'm optimistic about what this person will mean, you know, in the grand scheme of things. But a lot of times, you know, I know that like I'm going on a date and I'm going to get a dinner. And like, if this person's not a shitbag, that's awesome. But if they are, hopefully I find out at the end, you know, hopefully it's some bullshit at the end, or hopefully we're not too deep into our meal when they pop off with some wild shit that I can't recover from, you know? So, you know, dating while trans, dating while black, dating while fat, dating while queer, all these identities that I hold, like dating while any of these individual identities is tough. But encompassing all of those identities in as one person and trying to navigate the space is fucking extremely challenging. So, you know, so if I'm going to leave off something, I'm going to leave off my transness, which is not readily, or rather, which is invisibilized due to the fact that I've employed my cis privilege, you know, to, and not even just cis privilege, the fact that like I'm able to opt into like using makeup to enhance my look and thus, you know, enacting, you know, my privilege, my beauty privilege, you know, all of that shit is a complex set of seemingly pulleys and levers that like allow me to like, you know, exist in a more comfortable way, or exist in a way that like, you know, makes it seem, I guess, like less traumatic and less oppressive at times. But, you know, it's still there. It's still real, and it's still true that like being fat, being black, being trans, being queer, you know, being female assigned at birth, all of these identities that I hold are not seen as a positive. And if I'm able to kind of spin shit in my own way, I realize the problematic nature of that. But at the same time, I also realize that I want to live, and I don't want to be like living so fucking fucked up sometimes, you know, from just like being consumed by the obvious, eventual, continual oppression that I'm facing. And I'm not saying I'm doing that through dating and like not disclosing my transness. I'm just saying that not disclosing my transness is one way that I'm able to navigate seemingly safer. But obviously, as I've shown, I can disclose my transness and people can still lose their minds and tell me that by being a trans person who's not disclosing their transness, I'm opening myself up to violence, when in reality what that person is saying is your existence is worthy of, or you know, just your existence eventually will end in violence, or your existence is worthy of violence. And it's unfortunate because there are so many trans people out there that do have that are post-op, that do have have changed their sex, that have presented in a way that has made people uncomfortable because they are fucking transphobic. You know, all of these things, you know, that happen to trans folks, it's so victim blaming and it's so horrible because people will tell you straight up, oh, well, you should tell people you're trans because if you don't, then, like, things could happen to you. As if that is not scary as fuck to say, or rather to hear, that someone's basically telling me my existence means that my existence begets violence. And I feel like that only makes living more political. So I feel like in ways, me not disclosing my transness is in ways like depoliticizing. That's not the word. Depoliticizing. It's depoliticizing a part of myself that is politicized. That is like, there are politics of being trans. Like there are oppressive ass systems against me that in ways I'm able to dodge because I'm, you know, cis presenting, but when it doesn't feel right to present as cis, or when it doesn't feel right to present as this gender, or it doesn't feel right to present as high femme, you know what I mean? There's all these other systems in there. You know, I'm a fat woman, or rather I'm a fat woman, I'm presenting as a fat woman, so I better be looking like, you know, to the nines. But then on the other hand, it's like, yeah, I'm a fat woman, but I'm also a fat trans person. So then, you know, it comes into question when I'm like dressing more masculine of center, you know, whether or not I'm passing as a cis man. And then that scares me too, because, you know, as a black cis man, there are a whole host of other things that are going on in terms of like oppressive ass, just violent ass tactics against, you know, those folks. So there's a lot going on with my identities. So for someone to say, well, why don't you just disclose this? It's not as easy as disclosing it, because obviously it's a whole conversation. Obviously it's a part of me that, like, I'm still figuring out, and it's also a part of me that obviously, you know, as some people have said, it warrants violence. So there's reasons why people don't disclose certain things about themselves. There's reasons for invisibility of identities from time to time, and safety is a big one. So I will have more videos posted, but I just want to pop this out there. Peace, y'all.